All right.
Hey everybody, I'm super excited to chat today with Timothy Goodman. He is a designer, an illustrator, a muralist. I'm gonna add writer. How do you
I'll
feel
take
about
it.
that?
I write poetry. I write vignettes. Yeah.
Well,
I'm writing a book right now. I'm creating a graphic memoir.
so I'm gonna have to add that, but again, I said this in the live, your grandma calls you an artist, which I really feel like it's super important to be when you choose to become an artist, to see other people around you doing it. And so I think it's really fascinating where people are like, I always wanted to be an artist, but I'm something else. But like, I think,
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because like we were saying on live, like we feel discouraged to call ourselves something because there's like imposter syndrome or whatever. So it's like, even just like calling myself a writer. Well, I'm writing a book. I'm a writer. Like, why would I not be? You know what I mean? Like, why would I'm an artist. Like, okay, I went to school for graphic design. I understand typography. I do commercial art, but I also do personal art. I'm an artist. Like to the naked eye, to my grandma, but my grandma is an artist, but to my grandmother, I'm an artist. Like, she sees the work I'm making. It's not like I'm doing editorial layouts, for a magazine, and the way she thinks of graphic design or something, or doing branding, like this logo work or something. Like, I'm an artist. Like, so
can you spell
call
out
yourself an artist?
can you spell? Well, I think there's also, like, for me, I project that there's a sort of like mystical aura of genius around what we think of as an artist.
Yeah,
And there's
maybe.
well, I mean, like, I think like growing up learning about like famous artists, it was like there was something equivocal to being a genius or like really special. And I think that I mean, there's so much like sort of baggage wrapped up on connotations of what that might mean. But if you, like you said, like if you like, oh, we make things, but I want to push you on, or I want to ask you to clarify one thing. Like, what's the difference for you between an artist and, let's say, a graphic designer or someone doing layouts? For you right now?
Well, I mean, maybe there's not. I really think like if it's not even it's not a criticism at all. Like, so, if someone for doing layouts and that's their craft and they can call themselves an artist too. I'm talking about more in the sense of like a visual artist, like someone. And also I think that like it can go a lot of ways, like we also talk about visual artists, like what's a commercial artist versus just a fine artist. And does fine art have to only be painting and oil painting or something, and like, can it not be someone who is just creating work on a wall for themselves with a marker, like, I don't know. Like, so commercial, like, I think distinctively like a commercial artist, someone who's being hired for something, a brand or whatever. Now, are they being hired to just convey that brand's message, or is the brand hiring them just to do their thing because they're an artist? I don't know. Like, so there's a lot of different like little potholes you can go into. I think at the end of the day, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, call yourself whatever you want, and don't take shit from, I don't know. Don't listen to anybody, don't listen to me. Like, so yeah, if you're a layout artist, if you work for a magazine and oh my God, like I took typography classes for 4 years. I took typography, like that's art. Like there's an art to that, so I don't know. Yeah.
I did this bookkeeping fellowship when I had just graduated from grad school, and I remember it was this guy who, now I'm having Andrew Holborn. No one said fact check me. Anyway, he did artist, like crazy handset artist books with like people like Kiki Smith or like William T. Wiley, or like, and he would talk about how the art and layout of the type was more of a higher value than the artist's artwork in the publication. Andrew, and it just like it. And at the time, I kind of like agreed, like all the like mental energy and power it took to like make font decisions, that there was like a font for every project. But I wanted to ask you maybe if you could talk a little bit about it just dawned on me while we were speaking. It's like you're kind of, and I hope you aren't offended by this because I mean it with the utmost compliments. But you're like a mixture between like Keith Haring and Sophie Calle. How do you feel about that statement?
I take that as a compliment. Listen, I've like Keith Haring is like a god to me, you know. So, both of them. So, yeah,
are you a Sophie Calle fan?
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry. So obviously, so am I.
Yes.
Have you ever met her?
No.
I met her once, and I like gave her a letter and told her how much I loved her, and invited her for dinner at my house. This is
Did she come?
Insanity? No. She was very French.
Were you just starting out? Were you in school?
It was just when I had just graduated. And
no, it was like last week. It was like last week. No big deal.
No, I'm not above it. I would do it again.
Yeah. But I mean, listen, like I think it's so interesting, like as people, you know, as people become I put this in quotes, successful and gain success, however one might define that. But if they gain some sort of acknowledgement for their work and they, you know, build an audience or build, you know, it's interesting how like people become really, I wouldn't say they hide behind it, but like they lose you lose something. You forget people stop asking or telling other people how much they admire their work, or they forget how to, you know, like you just don't see it enough. And I think that that's unfortunate, you know, because it's like, I never stop telling people how much I love their work. And they could be someone I've never heard of. They could be someone who has tons of followers. They could be, if the work connects to me, and that's really what I'm in it for. Like I want to share the human experience and connect to people. So if their work connects to me, like that is the biggest gift in the world. And I want them to know that, you know, however they take it. And so I think it's just, and I never stop trying to find work either. You know, a lot of young artists, designers always ask me like, how do, you know, like I say, just reach out, like, you know, email people. I still do it. I still am looking for clients and brands and jobs and institutions that I want to partner with, and they don't know who I am. So it's just about like knocking on the door and letting people know you're alive a lot of the times, you know? So
can I ask, there's so many different questions I have from this, but I'm curious, I want to ask two questions. Who are you interested in sort of art-wise, or what's inspiring to you in terms of like graphic or music or what have you, or literature right now? And then two, I was curious if you could talk a little bit about developing your style, because you have such a distinct style. And I think a lot of people, or at least me, mainly struggle with how do you find your voice?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, finding your voice is a tough thing, because I mean, nothing is possible. Someone said this to me once, and I was just so simple. Nothing is possible without making time for it. And it's just so like, now there's a lot of privilege built into that, of course. And that needs to be acknowledged, and that's an entirely different discussion. But to find time is just the ultimate luxury, you know. Like now, I'm someone who, I do not have, you know, kids, for instance. I don't, you know, there's things that allow me to have a little bit more free time. So I acknowledge that. But especially early on, if you can find, like for young people in school, young creatives fresh out of school, finding time to play and to experiment and see what works for you is so crucial in your development, you know, and to just try things. You have to exhaust all possibilities. So if you like that thing that so-and-so did, do your Paula Scher thing, do your Keith Haring thing, do your whatever thing, you know, like just try it, like based on what inherently kind of like touches your heart, and then keep forming it. All the people you love, all the artists, all the whoever it is. I'm a massive Bob Dylan fan. There's no Bob Dylan without Woody Guthrie. You know what I mean? Like it's rooted in all his work. So you have to just play off of your heroes because even their work is based on a tradition of somewhere. So it's all in a long line of traditions and all in a long line of references and inspirations. Play off of it, and then build, get rid of the stuff that doesn't work, put your sensibilities into it, your opinions, your perspectives into it, and you make your own new little mold in your own little like corner of the world, I think,
Timothy, I think that's really accurate and insightful to think about it that way, to not be afraid of, because I think a lot of the time, I don't know if this was one of the sort of values when you went to school of like making sure you're authentically different as like that was like the highest priority, but it's really, it's like a lot of that also has a lot of pressure to it. And it's also not, for me, reflective on how like ideas and culture work. If that makes sense. Like, I take in things, I feel like I take in things through my senses and then regurgitate them through my lens. That seems to like make sense to me, not like these things are organically grown, I exist in a vacuum kind of mentality. Who knows, in 10 years I might feel differently about it. But I'm curious, like, do you have a line? Is there a line? Sometimes I think about, is there a line for you where you like get angry when, because I'm sure that people emulate your work a lot. Is there a line that maybe you're like, oh, this is great, I feel this is such a compliment that they like my work enough to mimic it, or I hate them, this sucks? How did they think?
It's definitely not I hate them. It's only I hate them when it is, for instance, a massive brand who is a multi-billion-dollar brand who, kind of, and this is not just about me. This is about, a lot of these conglomerates working in-house at like specialty fashion brands, very large, massive luxury fashion brands, essentially stealing other people's work and independent artists, commercial artists, and the styles and visual art that they've created and honed and crafted for years, then just being blatantly ripped off, by these enormous brands worth millions and billions of dollars. I think that is where it gets really like unfortunate. It's like it's just tough, and that's happened to me. I have my drawing style, but then I also have this whole other style that I've really worked on through the years as I write these phrases and I put them on walls, and they're big wonky kind of letters, and they fill up the whole kind of canvas of whatever I'm working on. And I've had that pretty openly, blatantly ripped off by brands, and I've tried to fight back, and I've done Instagram stuff, and and it's gotten it's tricky because as an independent artist, I don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to fight someone in court. They're going to take me to court for, it gets really tricky, and there's no real like, so that's where it's like I hate them.
No, I mean, I feel like, not to be all like, I'm in agreement with you, but I'm in agreement. I feel like when it bothers me when it's a company, it's also like you do have, I think for me, we're again in a privileged position in the sense that like when it is a big brand, we can just share that it happened. And I think that there's enough recourse
well, there's lots of people creating visual identities, independent artists, lots of Black and brown and queer, artists who are creating, these visual landscapes that penetrate culture, and then they're being blatantly ripped off and not being paid for that. It's one thing if a brand comes to you and they want to use the thing you've been, and they want to, Yeah, and they want to compensate you. They want you know, create. And I'm not talking about like a one-for-one ripoff. I'm talking about taking a style that someone has clearly developed and then just inheriting that style. I'm not saying like, oh, they because there's real copyright stuff if you literally take a person's design, you know, line by line. But this gets really dicey when it's like an inherent style that someone has like, you know, and then kind of taking that's something that has really penetrated the zeitgeist at a moment and then taking from it, you know, and that happens to, and I'm in the privileged position that like I get to have a great life and make money off of my art already. So this isn't gonna like, but for other folks,
We don't have that.
especially marginalized folks, like they don't have that, you know, so it's, you know, it's just it's really unfortunate. So I try to, you know, if it happens to me, I try to fight for it and stand up for everybody in that sense, you know, because it's just unfair, but it's tough situation.
I keep going, this brings me always back to like universal basic income,
Mhm.
and the importance of funding artists
Yeah.
in our society.
Yeah. That's why I'm a real sucker, like especially in New York, you know, where I've lived in and loved and worked for almost 18 years now. That's where I went to school at SVA and I've been there since. Anytime a school asks me to do something, and I've also gone, so I started out looking to do that. Like I started doing like pro bono murals, but now anytime like a school asks me to do, if they know me and my work and they ask me to do a piece for the kids, like I like I do it all the time. Like I'm just like I just have to, like I always try to do like workshops with the kids and they can help me create the mural. And because there's just nothing more meaningful to me in a lot of ways, you know, than just being able to like make art for a community, for a school, for kids. Like that's, at the end of the day, it's just like what it's all about, you know.
Yeah. No, it's true. There's only a certain amount of like self-satisfaction. I mean, I don't mean to assume that there's only a certain amount of like I can look at something I've made and be like, oh, that feels right.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, like it's hard to not be affected by other people's opinions. And I don't think it should be. Like I think that we're a community and things that we do are like, I don't know, I care about what other people think, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I also think that there's this really, it's interesting about criticism too, you know, like I think that, like I was saying on the Instagram live, like we, like in a lot of ways we are in the business of consequence, you know, like when you make art, just like if someone makes a song, if someone create, you know, you have to understand the references, you have to understand the times you're working in and the references and associations you're working with as a visual artist. So if I put something on a wall, on a mural, or in the book I'm creating right now, if I'm making that, you know, hundreds, thousands of people see, I have to also understand the connotations and the references I'm using. So if I do something and maybe I didn't know it was offensive, you know, but it is offensive, I have to reckon with that. I have to face that, you know what I mean? I have to understand, I have to listen, I have to understand and do better, you know, with that. Because I think that, so I don't think criticism is always such a, like people just always, oh, they're a hater or whatever, but it's not, sure, there can be that, but there is also like a real, like, I think it's, you know, if you're getting love 8 out of 10 times, like listen to the 2 people, just see what they have to say, you know, like take it in with like, and let that affect your work.
Is there a line that you don't cross in terms of, you alluded to this a little bit earlier in the live, where things that you will share openly and things that you don't share, that you keep, that you feel like are maybe, I think the word you used was sacred.
Yeah.
And how do you decide what that is?
I don't know, you know, it's interesting. In the past, I haven't always done such a great job with that.
Oh, what do you mean?
Well, I just think that like, you know, with a lot of my personal experiment projects that I've created over the years with Jessica Walsh, like 40 Days of Dating, 12 Kinds of Kindness is another one. Then I created another project with my good friends, Robin Canner and Akila Hughes, where we all went to online therapy together and documented that. And it's called Friends with Secrets. and you can like read our therapy session. And then on Instagram for years, I've been writing about my love life and my heartbreak and my mental health. And like, so I don't necessarily think I'm like always doing a good job about like, so I think there have been times where I've looked back, I've come away from creating something and putting it online and saying, maybe I shouldn't have shared that, you know, like, I don't know. Like, so I think sometimes it can get tricky if you talk about other people, of course, but more, I mean, everyone does that. Any memoir you've ever read is about other people. So, you know, there's that. But, you know, there's been times where I've talked about my childhood where my mother has been, you know, not happy with me per se, you know. She's felt hurt about it, you know, but like, you know, not because of what necessarily, yes, because of what happened, but because I've talked about it publicly. And you know, she feels it like reflects badly on her, and I understand that. I understand how that can be difficult for people, you know. And sometimes I've just questioned whether or not I should have did that or not. But I think just having the wherewithal to question it, to live with it, I think is important. That doesn't mean you should do one thing or the other, but like live in that gray area of like whether or not you should do it or not, you know. But yes, I was saying with my girlfriend, you know, there are things when outside of the art, I have been very open just about my life at times. And then I think with my girlfriend Tina, because she is so special to me, and I'm so lucky for the love we have. There, unlike in the past, now I do feel a little bit of like I don't share everything anymore. I'm very sacred about like, you know, I don't just put her on, you know, I'm not like just putting everything about what we're doing all the time and stuff like that. So with that, you know, and I think that's just like where I'm at in my life. Like, I just don't feel the need to do that. I don't want to do that.
Well, you reminded me with the Friends with Secrets project that this newsletter is called Bad at Keeping Secrets.
Yeah.
I asked people to talk about, share a secret or talk about how they feel about secrets. And I feel like you already did it. But if you have one, or if you thought of it, I'm not even sure I sent you the prompt before.
Well, I will tell you, I do have a secret.
Oh, you do?
I do.
Sorry.
And it's gonna get me canceled, but I'm gonna say it anyways.
That's
okay.
Exciting.
My secret is that I do not like Queen at all. I hate them.
Okay. Tell
the
me
group.
more. Yeah, I'm aware.
Are you a fan? Are you a fan?
I'm really sorry to say this, but I am neutral.
Okay.
And unfortunately, because of that neutrality, I cannot cancel you.
I just know like Queen seems to really touch people's heart, and it does the exact opposite for me. So I like Freddie. I love Freddie. Like, yes to Freddie, no to Queen.
Okay. So I do kind of feel like this maybe makes you otherworldly in the sense that their music, I feel like, is designed to have an emotional reaction and to have to like use physical sensations to like rile us up. And the fact that you don't succumb to that calling is kind of bizarre.
maybe. See, I just don't. I am very turned off by it. So
did somebody get mad at you recently that when you
no I just know like people have a very strong reaction when I say I don't like Queen.
They
just really like do not like that. Yeah.
Was there
and they're trying to convince me of it and like this and that, and it's like I get it. I've tried.
And I mean, I'll give you that.
I even watched the movie.
I mean, you've gone above and beyond.
Exactly. So
wait, okay. So Timothy, what music group got you through high school?
Through high school would be Led Zeppelin.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Is there someone through college that came to mind?
College would be Kanye.
Really? How do you feel about Kanye?
The old Kanye, you know.
Like the Gold Digger Kanye?
Yeah. First 4 album Kanye, you know, like 2005 to 12.
I'm
11.
always surprised. I have this other really good friend who lives in New York who also is like, not to say that you're a closeted Kanye fan, but she's kind of a closeted Kanye fan and was really excited.
Well, no, I used to be the biggest Kanye fan, like massive. I mean, the guy's music was like my soundtrack for my life up until, whatever, 2016. So, but it's very unfortunate, but
Yeah, no, I think it's always like general. I think the thing I was surprised about the Led Zeppelin was that Led Zeppelin seems before your time. Not to assume.
well, I'm actually a 60-year-old man, so
Wait, are you? No, I
no.
think you'd have to be close to 70. I think 70 year old.
No, my mom was she went to, so I was such a big Led Zeppelin fan in high school. I used to collect all the bootlegs for like all these like shows from the 70s. And I, I actually had this show from like 1977 that my mom went to, which was like when she was, I don't know, she was like 19 or something. So um, that was pretty cool. Kind of came full circle. But I love Led Zeppelin. Yeah.
Uh, can I ask what year you were born in?
Oh, well,
Do I
a
know that?
person never tells. A lady never tells.
Oh, okay. Don't tell me. I think when we talked a little bit about earlier about how you had a sort of troubled moments in sort of like your teen years, what was it like growing up in Ohio, and what were the particular difficulties that you feel like you had to endure?
You know, I grew up with a lot of love in my family and for my mom and my grandparents. I didn't grow up with a lot of my father, and I had a particularly kind of rough relationship with my stepfather. Um, that when we talk about toxic masculinity a lot, that kind of like really played into it a lot. I grew up, yeah, I don't know. I by the time I was like 16, 15, 16, it was just I wasn't dealing, when I look at it now, like I wasn't dealing with my trauma in healthy ways. I was doing drugs. I was not performing at school at all. I mean, I was barely going to school. I had figured out which is a whole other story with about how my graphic design career started when I was in high school, because I would forge I would create the tardy slips in the late classes. I would recreate them in Microsoft Word. I would go to the store, get the proper paper, and recreate and get the right font and like mirror the slips, and I would forge. Yeah, no, it was like everything started.
It was also like a social practice art project.
Yeah,
in high school.
So, but sorry. I was I wasn't, and so it came out in a lot of different ways, and a lot of just a lot of anger, inside that I didn't really confront and deal with until much later in my life. So I think, there was all of that. And there was also like, like any student, any kid, you go through a lot of changes, and whether you move towns and you change, you go through divorces. But with physical abuse and things like that, you have to like, there's a lot of things you have to kind of like confront and thank God for therapy and my therapist for many years.
Do you think going to school, getting out of the situation in New York was sort of the catalyst for change, or for how are you? Because when I think about my partners from Pittsburgh, and sort of the culture there is like you don't leave it, like even if it's bad, like you bloom where you're planted, kind of a situation, and it's really difficult to leave. It feels like you're in some ways abandoning the people that you love to like pursue your dreams. And
yeah, for sure.
If that sort of cultural ethos traveled into Ohio.
Oh, for sure. I know a lot of people like that. I didn't really wrestle with that when it was ready for me. I think I went through a transformation in my early 20s. I was painting homes and hanging wallpaper, and I was working as a laborman for 4 or 5 years. And then during that time, I was taking classes at community college. And I really, I had this boss who was really encouraging, and I had some really great teachers who were really encouraging, saying like, you have talent, you should see where this can go. They could see like the enthusiasm I had when I was doing it. So I just was like in a place where I was just ready to like just dream, and I was sick of, I was still living at home. I was like, I had even got like my license suspended for all kinds of things. I got arrested in my early 20s, and I was doing all these things that were like really just um no good. So I really found myself in a place where I was ready to just go for it and try. And I didn't look back. I just really just kind of like, but it wasn't until years later that I realized like, oh, that was my own kind of, that was another form of like, just uh, being able, you do these things to kind of like compartmentalize trauma and pain. And then you kind of like, so even then it was like, I was trying to use like this, like, I'm going to go and try to be successful. And I'm going to like, that was nothing but like a way to kind of like, um, not confront my own pain, so it wasn't until like much later where I had to like reckon with that as well, so.
Sorry if I asked too personal of a question. You can always say,
No.
I don't want to answer that. My last question before we have to go is, I was curious if you could sort of, as a person who we'll just all agree on, you've had a tremendous amount of success and developed this amazing style, been an advocate for actually like being true to yourself. And I think all of these things are like really important to see. I was wondering if you could maybe, if you had an equation for, I think a lot of times defining how you got there, or what sort of the ingredients that would be to get to this place that you're at would be.
I don't know if there, I think, unfortunately, I don't know if there is an equation. Everybody wants that, like, but it really is about somehow finding yourself in the process, and you have to accept and enjoy that process as much as possible. And to not, I always see a lot of young creatives like really eager to like get to the place they want to be at. And how do you find yourself during the time between, A and Z, like, what does that look like for you? What does that mean? What happens if you never get past the point of B or C or D? Like, ask yourself, like, I don't have an A to Z. I never did really, I just knew I just wanted everything that kind of happened to me. I then tried to really just make the most out of every situation. So it's like, for now, right now, it's like, I'm in this position where I'm working on my book. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but I'm creating this work and this art, and I'm not trying to find, I find meaning in it because because it's inherently me, so I don't know, it's like, it goes back to that thing about like, how do you make time for the things that are necessary? It's like truly about, and like I said on the IG live, like, where you stumble, there lies your treasure. Who are you in these moments, and like, what does it mean to be? So I don't know. There's really no like equation for it.
I find these things endlessly fascinating. So thank you for indulging me, and thank you so much for taking time. I am genuinely really excited to see your book, and congratulations.
No, I can't wait to send it to you.
Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Editing the process that can be really, meaningful, but also laborious.
It's a lot. Because I'm writing, designing, creating all the art for, like, I'm doing the whole thing. So it's just like, it's a lot, but I wouldn't have it any other way. So.
Yay. Thank you so much, Timothy. Take care.
Thank you, Carissa. Yes, you too. Bye.
Really, really a joy.
No, thank you. This is such an honor. You're the best. You're so cool.
Back at you.